everyone, Joshua Hanlon here, and today I'm at Brick World Chicago with Joe and the Citizen Brick booth. He's going to be taking us through their amazing custom Lego accessories, figures, and all sorts of incredible stuff that they work on here. So you've got a ton of examples of stuff for us. Before we dive on in, tell us real quick a little bit about the company for people who haven't heard of Citizen Brick.
Well, we started about 13 years ago, I think, doing custom stuff. I kind of came to Lego after kind of long dark ages. Got back into it when I had kids, and I'm kind of a printer by trade, so I was always really interested in the printed parts and how Lego does the really detailed extra parts. Everybody loves the the kind of pre-sticker parts that they would do. So after a couple of months of trial and error of trying to figure out exactly what the process is, what the materials are, we sought out to make as complementary or exacting of a Lego product as you could. Like if we're going to do custom things, I want it to be as close to Lego as possible. So we do pad printing, which is the same sort of printing process that Lego uses. We use the same inks, Lego parts, and we just make designs. And to go through all this trouble of like, why would we, are we trying to make something when Lego's got it so dialed in? We really look for things that like Lego doesn't do or won't do, or I don't want to say can't do, but maybe just won't do.
We'll get into some of that. Yeah, for sure. So, but a big part of that you mentioned with the printing is then you get that same level of quality that Lego has.
Yeah,
so that's a really important.
It's really kind of, we don't want to make fake Lego.
Right.
We want to make things that are an homage, something that's kind of like a tribute to how good. Lego is like a super finely tuned, super finely tuned, high production value product. We want to make something that's as good. I don't want anybody ever thinking of our stuff as like bootleg Lego. We want it really to be high quality. If you're not, we always say we want to be like what the purist makes an exception for. Like, oh, I only like factory Lego. Okay, but Citizen Brick's pretty cool too. That's what we try to do.
I love that. Well, we can dive in here. Yeah. So we've got some tiles and then some accessories. So with tiles like this, you've obviously got lots of different prints here. How do you decide sort of the approach to designing these? Like you look for holes in maybe what Lego doesn't make. How does that work?
For these, I really talk to the builders. I go like, what do you want to see? Like, and tessellated tiles like this, ones that kind of make a repeating pattern, were a thing that came up again and again. So we, things that are diamond plate or metal, rusty things that just kind of make patterns.
You can put a lot of them together and get that cool texture look.
Yeah, cobblestones for castle floors, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
And then of course guitars. So these are kind of things, minifig accessories more than just build parts as well.
I'm kind of a big music guy too, so I wanted to, and we came up with these about the time that you started seeing a lot more Lego instruments. And we said, all right, well these are cool, but what if we like really kind of beef them up a little bit? So we make a series of kind of overmolded guitar parts. So kind of for the music aficionado.
Now, when you say overmolded there, explain that term a little bit more so people understand kind of what that is.
You can see that the body and the neck are two different colors. So we mold in-house. We have an injection molding machine. We'll mold the neck in tan and then kind of mold, put it in another mold and wrap the red plastic around it so it kind of bonds together. So it's, they're really, you can kind of mix and match the styles and the designs and then there's the printing on top of it. So you kind of have like a limitless kind of combination possibilities.
Yeah. And you can see it looks amazing. The next display over definitely caught my eye. So this is one of those kind of really unique things that it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense for Lego. Yeah. So what do we have here?
This is another one that was kind of sourced from talking to builders and guys who like to modify minifigures. I know that Lego now has overmolded arms, which is a huge leap forward, I think. Everything was long sleeves until then.
Right.
But for especially some of the military guys, what we did is we molded a very thin kind of shell that can glue right on top of a Lego arm to give the illusion of a short sleeve. So we used to print them, which was really kind of labor intensive to print on top of it. And we think this is kind of like fits in that lane too. A little bit of crazy glue, and then there you go.
There you go.
Make your own short sleeves.
And you mentioned the military stuff, so we see some examples of that here. You've got brick arms, but then of course you've got all of these accessories here. So what can you make with these parts?
These are things that we started molding ourselves recently, and it kind of came out of what some of the military kids were using. Twisted up chains or string or a lot of things. We just said like, it's not really like, Lego has that one little barbed wire piece, but we thought, honestly, what I thought is it's not sharp enough. So we said, how can we make a toy that's slightly more dangerous than?
They kind of made it a little more
rubbery.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we also thought that, like, for city stuff, urban areas, whatever. It just wasn't enough fence, so we've made little Lego compatible fences, and they're really tight and they're really high quality, and I really think that they complement things well.
Yeah. And so you're talking about making, actual pieces here, not just printing on accessories.
Yeah.
So where do you do that? What is that process like?
Well, it's a little bit new for us because we've
Okay.
been printing for so long. I think we've kind of got a really good grip on it. I was looking for kind of a new challenge. I'm not really like a 3D design guy naturally, but we started working with some machinists and some engineers and doing some 3D drafting. I said, I want to make this part. Here's my napkin sketch. Take me through the process. I said, I don't want to 3D print stuff, just like we didn't want to digitally print stuff. We want to do it the way Lego does it. So
Right.
what's the process of like designing a toy from start into injection molding it and make it the same quality and the same materials as Lego? I want, above all else, Citizen Brick tries to be super compatible. We just want it to be, this is a very picky audience. If you make a product that they don't feel complements their Lego, they just won't, you don't
Right.
want them saying the M word like Mega Blocks or something, right? So,
Exactly.
so
You
we
don't want
really-
that.
No, we cling very tightly to Lego production quality, But then that leaves a lot of room. Like Lego doesn't do a lot of military stuff, and there's definitely stuff that they haven't done or won't do, or that's kind of where we come in.
And we see some more minifigure stands and accessories, and then these here, what do you throw in this section?
So every once in a while we'll do like kind of a blind bag thing. As a kid, I used to love getting blind bag toys. You never know what you're gonna get. So we do every year kind of a series of things where we do, in this case, we do these tall heads. I'll talk about those in a second. Different typographies. It's kind of just like a little design project. But you can collect them and trade them. So our customers kind of say, they post online and go, hey, I got these ones, which ones do you need? And they kind of sort it out themselves.
Yeah. And you mentioned the heads here as well, so we can get into some of that. There's lots of different prints, but we'll start here
Sure.
with the traditional Lego head, but custom prints here.
Yeah, again, like there's some stuff that Lego dabbles in. Like we don't know, I think for me when I was a kid, this is very telling. I used to like the Lego robbers. Like the cops were cool, but the robbers had a little extra edge to them. And I thought
It really says a lot about Citizen Brick.
Definitely, yeah, definitely is true. So, and I think the military community that kind of backs me up in that is that they're, kids like Army toys.
Yeah.
So we make a whole line of stuff to complement those. The stuff that I am personally super into is we started making our own molded heads to print on. So, supplies are limited. Getting blank Lego heads is always kind of a task. So we said, well, let's make something that we can kind of make our own thing with all the time. So we have double heads, tall heads, big heads. They're kind of hilarious.
Right, I want to make sure we kind of pull these out a bit here, because these things are bizarre. When you pull it out next to a normal head here,
Yeah.
you see how huge that is, how tall this one is.
Yeah, and then the double one is my favorite, I think.
Wow, yeah. It's like, why not just have two heads match
Sure.
each other?
And this to me was a real test because now we're like, printing is one thing, but trying to make a plastic toy that will work with a Lego thing, there's a lot of like tolerances and a lot of quality issues, color. And this really was a lot of time and development. I wanted, and thankfully the silence was kind of what I know we did. Nobody complained. So, oh, these are great. They're just kind of, our customers kind of accepted them, and they're a lot of fun. And it gives us a limitless kind of palette to play with.
And it's important to mention that all of those are still very compatible with Lego minifigures, so it's not that you're creating like a different system or something.
No. They all have connection points that are the same. I mean, again, because of our kind of reverence for Lego, we want to keep it, maybe not the immediate family, but definitely extended family.
Sure, there you go. We should mention you
cousin.
also do boxed kits as well here, so what is this one?
Yeah, this is our lowrider kit that we did last Christmas. I love this kit. We don't do a lot. There's a lot of custom companies that specialize in just doing kits. This is kind of new for us. Our specialty is decorating parts, obviously. So we said, if we're going to make a car, and everybody in this room can build a good Lego car, but we wanted to make one that would have a special Citizen Brick kind of touch to it. So we printed all over the surfaces, got 4 custom minifigures, which you can't see right now. It's got lights and sound.
Oh, nice.
Brick Stuff did a special kit just for us. So you push a button on the dashboard and it plays car horns and flashes the lights. And like most of the Citizen Brick stuff, we kind of like start with a little idea and it kind of swells into like, oh wow, maybe we went too far with this thing. So that's always the fun part for us is like, AFOLs are like, big creative crowd.
Yeah.
You know, you got to do a lot to kind of raise eyebrows
Right.
in a room full of stuff that looks like this. So we really take our time and try to make something that people will really love, hopefully. And so far, I think we're doing it. So we have a good little following.
Oh, I think so. This stuff is really unique here, and you can see some of the other types of heads that you've done here. So you've got like the tall puking head there. You've got the dead head with the X's on the eyes as well. What are some of your favorites in this section?
Man, they're all kind of like my kids in some way. But you know, it's funny. People ask us a lot, like, well, where do the ideas come from?
Yeah.
And I go, it's really easy. Like, because we do pad printing, which is a very kind of specific, technical kind of, you know, way of putting ink on parts. There are things you can do and things you can't do and things you shouldn't do with it. And I think a lot of the reason Lego minifigures look the way they do is because of the parameters of pad printing. Can't do a million colors, you wouldn't really want to. I think a lot of the reason Lego minifigures look the way they do is kind of dictated partially by putting wet ink on a plastic part and how that lays down. So we work with a more limited palette. We do lines of a certain chunkiness, all because, you know, if our stuff looks very Lego-like, and I think it does, it's at least in part because of the way it's made. So I think that's why our stuff is really very seamless. We've had people from Denmark come over and go, oh, I don't remember making that. I'm like, well, that's because we made it. You know?
That's a high praise there. That's amazing.
I couldn't ask for more than that, really. You know, so as a printer and a designer, that's kind of the benchmark for me. Is like, are we doing it the way that would Lego be happy with this? Now they might argue with the content for sure, but you can't argue with the production quality, I think.
Now we see some of the full minifigures that you guys do here as well.
Sure.
So you're also able to buy kind of the complete minifigure. And what are some of the inspirations here?
This is really our blank slate, right?
Okay.
Like, there's nothing more of a petri dish than a minifigure shape, right?
Right.
So we ask ourselves, like, you know, some of our stuff has a very definite, very distinctive pop culture influence. You know, I'm in my 40s, so there's, you know, a sweet spot of IP from the 90s that I have an affinity for.
A lot of your influence.
Yes. But when we started doing this a long time ago, we met a representative from Lego. I don't know how official this would be, but when I met my first Lego guy, I said, what do you not want us to do? Because I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
Right.
And they said, don't do this, don't do that, and we don't do that stuff. So
Okay.
you won't see a lot of Star Wars. We don't do Star Wars, we don't do Marvel stuff.
These IPs that Lego maybe already has.
Yeah, and that's fine, because they're not really my cup of tea anyway. I want to make stuff where you'll do a double take and be like, that almost shouldn't be a Lego. That's kind of our sweet spot. I mean,
You're always bordering on the edge.
Yeah, I mean, this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't think the world needs a different Spider-Man or a different Batman. There's plenty of them. They're not going to be done better than Lego. I'm always interested in territory that people haven't done, or even if they've done, can we do it better? Custom, I think there's nothing cooler than a custom chunk of Lego fandom, because it's just kind of like Wild West and wide open, and people trying new techniques and really trying to make a thing that you haven't seen before.
Right.
But it's like a perfect little 3/4 inch kind of canvas that you can kind of design anything on. So. And
you're definitely not afraid to shy away from things like horror, or you definitely embrace some violence and some of that type of stuff.
I think all those things have their own fandoms too, right? So a lot of our customers come to us not because they come from a Lego point of view, they come from their other, I'm a horror movie fan. Oh my God, look at this thing in a horror movie. You know, so they come from that direction too, which is great because it brings, you know,
maybe some non-traditional Lego fans.
I'm not going to tell anybody in this room anything about Lego they don't already know, but I might get a horror movie fan or a sci-fi fan and go, oh man. And again, it comes back to, like, I think we make, you know, if it's not coming out of Denmark, it could conceivably, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like, I want it to be, I want you to look at it from 100 yards and be like, it might be a real Lego. You know, that's the test for us. So.
We saw a few more minifigs there. Now more minifig accessories, more heads. You've got like the duct tape head there.
Yeah, I think more than almost anything else we've done, I think a yellow one's almost a truer example. Sometimes you just draw stuff and like, oh man, that's as Lego-y as I could make something. And I don't know why Lego would make that, but if they didn't, we did. So, yeah, you can stage your own kidnappings or hostage scenes or
you know, whatever's
in the town that maybe shouldn't be.
And you've got this, you know, the little like vampire faces there.
Yeah.
Cyclops with the one eye down in there.
Yeah.
That's super fun.
I really think, like, to me, as a designer, I like working with a real limited vocabulary of, like, Lego's a simple thing. Like, we all grew up with, like, the 2 dots and a smiley face, right? So I don't feel the need to stray too far from that. I think there's a lot of story to tell with just those few ingredients. So we keep it real simple.
And then up in these glass jars here, these things caught my eye, especially these gummies here, which look super realistic when you just walk up to this at first. How often does a kid want to eat one of those?
Well, tomorrow's the test, right? We'll see. We'll see if there's any dentists who are watching this and want to reach out and do some free care. Someone's going to crack a tooth on that.
And then you got the rubber chickens here.
So the chickens are a funny story. When we made this mold, we had a little room on the mold, and we were thinking, like, what is the most non-essential thing we could come up with? And like a rubber chicken doesn't really have a lot of practical application. So what if we had a giant fishbowl full of them? And for some reason, everybody who's a customer who sees it kind of almost instinctively starts grabbing them. No one can answer why they want it, but everybody just feels like they need to buy a couple of them. So
yes,
the rubber chickens are kind of like an unofficial mascot for us.
And then you also have this very realistic candy as well, which has a little face on it there.
It does. So we'll see. I put all the signage I could saying, like, please don't eat it. So far so good.
Try to cover yourself.
Yeah.
Then you've got more classic things like zombies, which I think is always a popular genre.
Man, zombies. I will say that when I started doing this in my condo 13 years ago, where I started drawing Lego stuff, I drew a zombie first. And this was before the CMF figures came out. But at the same time, when they came out with the Series 1 with the zombie, I said, all right, well, I'm on the right track at least. You know, they did it too, but I'm a big zombie guy. And as a businessman, nobody buys just one zombie. You know, people buy an entire horde.
There you go.
So it's always been kind of like a theme within our stuff that is pretty evergreen.
And we see more examples of the military stuff here. So this is maybe more of what people think about with like third-party Legos. The military stuff is more the traditional.
For sure, and we definitely have our own kind of like niche within that, I think. You know, the first time I did a Lego show like this, I was kind of stunned by how many 12-year-old kids wanted to talk to me about the Battle of the Bulge or something. I was like, how do you just watch the History Channel all day long? So you know as well as I do that kids who are into military Lego stuff, military mocks, very specific, want a certain degree of accuracy, and that gets a little problematic when you deal with military stuff. So we always kind of approach it from a very, like, it's a toy first. Army man good guys, Army man bad guys. There's a lot of stuff we don't do. There's definitely boundaries for, you know, I want to make toys, you know, and I grew up playing Army toys, same with brick arms, you know, it's like, there's a way to keep it very tethered to Lego, I think. So I think we've kind of found our sweet spot with the military stuff.
No, and you see great examples of that here, kind of different theaters, different eras represented is all fantastic. I love to see this camo kind of all the way wrapped around the legs there.
Yeah, and a lot of our customers kind of drive the design decisions too, where they go like, all right, you know, our kind of rule of thumb is like, did Lego do it? And if not, why not? And I said before, some of that is dictated by the printing process. Lego doesn't print on the back of the legs, at least until very recently they didn't. Before that, when we started, they were rarely printing on arms too. So we kind of use them as like a style guide. So like, what do they do? Someone said like, can you print on the top of the shoulders? And I had to explain like, it's not an aesthetic decision, it's a technical decision. Why it's very hard to do.
Right, like what's physically possible, basically.
And then it becomes down to like, what is it necessary? Like one guy online said, well, why don't you print on the inside of the legs? I'm like, is that really adding much more to the equation? Like I print on the bottom of the feet if you wanted me to, but it doesn't make it better. You know what I mean? So, but there's some things, you know, if you're making camouflage, it's got to be all the way around.
Sure, yeah.
So there's kind of a medium. I think the design always drives it for us. Do we put every zipper on every pocket, every stitch on every belt loop? No, but it's like, it's a tiny thing. You know, it's got to look good from a distance. That's kind of our guiding strategy.
And as we keep going around to this corner with more minifigs here, so we see some more examples of some of that stuff that you were talking about earlier. You've got even larger,
couple of them,
yes, kind of the combo packs.
Yeah, we do that as kind of, you know, like any retail business, Black Friday, Christmas time is a big, we try to pull out all the stops for that. So we'll do like a big 3 or 5 pack. We do about 4 or 5 full minifigures like this a month now. We're kind of clicking along at a pretty good pace. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of things we want to make, and thankfully our audience has been pretty receptive to it. Just keeps us busy. Yeah.
And as we come around the corner, then you see more examples of, I love like the British tile there. That's fantastic. And then you see some really incredible printing on these. So we saw these heads earlier, but some of these here just have a really amazing level of printing. And this cyborg head with all the way printing all the way up there.
Yeah, we started, I did a little YouTube search and a video came up recommended for me that said cursed Lego minifigures, and it's not a phrase I heard. And then when I watched it, like 5 out of 10 of them were ours. So I was like, oh, I guess that's what we make. So we just started calling the melted heads and the double heads kind of cursed minifigures. And it's funny, every time I do a show, a kid runs up to this part and goes, oh, I saw these on YouTube. So sometimes it just kind of gets named for you, I guess.
One thing that caught my eye that I thought was very funny, so for anyone who's been to a Lego convention, the brick badges are a big deal. And you've got this very large brick badge with the full branding on there. You know, you got to get all of the public relations, words in there.
Someone doesn't poke someone else's eye out.
So there's even funny stuff like that you guys do as well. You've even got patches here.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, as a design guy, I love making stuff, period. Whether it's citizen brick stuff, whatever. Sometimes it's like, oh, I really wish we could just design our own fill in the blank.
Right.
And sometimes embroidered patches are the thing of the day, and I love getting a package full of like stuff we designed and it came out a couple weeks later, it shows up in the mail and it's like, oh, it's exactly what you wanted. So yeah, we do a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then you've got the little miniature babies here.
Oh, the babies.
So many fun designs inside here.
You know, we started because there's always, and you can say they're kind of like knee high here, there's always a little kid, and I know we're on the right track when a little kid at a con will just come and put 2 hands right in. And I don't love that, but I understand, like, if I'm doing my job, kids just want to touch them.
Right.
So we do a lot of babies. My daughter, as it turns out, designed most of these. You should make this, which I thought was great, doing a father-daughter exercise, until she said, hey, I made those hot dog babies, and where's my cut of the money?
Whoa, okay.
I want a percentage for every one that you sell. I said, okay, well.
She starts playing hardball with you.
See you in court.
Fun father-daughter bonding.
She's,
that is cool, though. I'm sure you mentioned a few times now, you get, input from other people, whether it's fans or your family, whoever it might be.
None of this stuff exists in a vacuum. You need, it's a vibrant community, and I mean, there's nothing more inspiring than just kind of walking around the room and seeing, oh man, I never imagined doing that with it. So we just try to look to see what could we do to kind of put a little mustard on it.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we come to. Like the lockers is a good example. Mm-hmm. It's a simple 2x4 tile, and it's not even a complicated design, but seeing them, I love seeing them pop up in people's mocks. Like, oh, I know we're doing our job, because when I see our stuff out in the wild, like in this convention hall, people who bought it feel like it's useful. The minifigs, they go on a shelf, look at them, that's great, but I love seeing people use our parts in their builds because it feels like they have, decided that it's good enough.
Right. Yeah. It's almost more mundane in a way. It's like a locker tile, whatever it might be. But that also is what makes it so great to put in your build, because it represents those just everyday things that you're able to really add that detail.
My favorite piece growing up was the 1x2 slope with the rotary dial phone on it.
Yeah, there you go.
My kids have no idea what this is. I'm like, no, believe it or not, that's a phone. But that, when I was a kid and I first saw that, it blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, they made a phone.
Right.
Like, just the possibility in just a little bit of decoration to it. That's kind of like the genesis of a lot of this stuff.
No, that's super cool. I love that. And then you've got more like posters here, or even like realistic printed money.
Oh, that's funny.
As well.
Every once in a while, just like real $20 bills, every couple of years we kind of redesign the bills.
Okay.
I don't know, avoid counterfeiting or whatever, but I say, as much as I love Lego and their designs, the dollar bill always kind of left something, the $100 bill.
Sure, right. It obviously was just the one.
Left me a little wanting, So we took our stab at kind of, in another life, I would be a counterfeiter, I think, and I would just be like, I can draw that $20 bill better than that.
If things had gone just slightly differently with Citizen Brick.
Yeah, it could still, I don't know.
Maybe, you never know.
That's kind of fun. I mean, it all comes back to the same idea of like, I just want to see if I can kind of echo it or mirror it or do, kind of my own kind of interpretation of something. And there's a lot of room for that stuff, I think. Like, why make a phone when you can make a cracked iPhone? You know, that seems more familiar to
There
everyone.
you go. Yeah, you get this. Everyone has a broken phone at some point.
Yeah.
Then you've got the little mouse trap here, which I think
Yeah.
is super cool.
One of the nice things that we do, pad printing specifically, is you could do metallic colors. And I love whenever we can find a reason to throw a metallized color in there. It just adds a little extra to it.
And then even like warning symbols, all of that. You should live, laugh, love.
Yeah.
I mean, classic. every house needs one of these.
And it's funny how often I see that one pop up in people's living room mocks. You know? Like, oh, people did it.
Now we'll keep making our way around so you can see some wearable merch here as well. How extensively do you do this kind of stuff?
Not as much. It kind of feels like, I mean, like, to be honest, I only wear Citizen Brick shirts, so this is really just an idea. I can make laundry for me.
This is just your closet.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I have about 20 of the same shirts I wear. But we do these. We recently started doing like limited edition posters.
Okay.
We make these ourselves in house. This is my background, is doing kind of art prints.
Art, yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of a new kind of branch for us, and people seem to be digging it.
And then this section you've kind of purposefully left blank. So what is happening over here?
Yeah, so this is the kind of like off the menu, non-production color. We call it the stash. And people go, hey, did you bring the stash to the show? And they almost kind of whisper it, and I go, okay, yeah, I got it for you. So this is stuff that is basically different colorways of our regular products, stuff that we don't sell, things we do in very small quantities just to kind of mess around with. So some really, if this stuff was kind of wacky, this is like super wacky.
Okay.
Yeah, so we get people. This is really kind of the fuel between a lot of Citizen Brick stuff, is people fly in just to come. The reason they're all here the day early is to kind of meet us at the show. The first guy was here before we even set up. They want to get to the stash, and this is where people collect and trade, and a lot of the kind of fuel around Citizen Brick comes from these guys. I have almost nothing to do with it at that point. They're talking to each other online, and little communities form around collecting and trading stuff, which is really the coolest part to me.
It becomes its own market in a way with your products.
Yeah, I love, because I was a big collector of like records and certain action figures when I was a kid. And this is all pre-internet, and I love when people are kind of like talking about it and you're not in the room, and it's in a good way.
Right, exactly.
So I don't know, Citizen Brick fans are really loyal and kind to each other, and they seem to be helping each other out with their collections, and I'm always shocked when I see that kind of how extensive it really is. Yeah.
So can we pull out maybe an example of some of the crazier stuff that you might have?
Yeah, let me see what we got. So these are just some ones we did just the other day. Giant baseball head. And these fit on regular minifig bodies. So I don't know what you might do with them, but you might just slip one in the background of your baseball mock, like this one across the hall here.
Sure, maybe it's a big foam head or something like that.
You never know, right? Like, it's not for me to tell you what to do with it. I'm not telling you to live your life, but yeah. So within this, we'll do like this. The white one's the production one, and the different color ones are the non-production one. Now, what you might do with a trans clear yellow version of it, it's not really my business. But someone who collects trans clear yellow will scoop it up. So it works pretty well. Yeah, it's a good system.
No, and there's all sorts of different stuff you can see. And that's the cool part about coming to the show in person as well, is that you get to have this experience. This is kind of the Brick World or Lego Convention experience.
Yeah, you know, we're from Naperville, local, so this is kind of our home field advantage. We bring out everything. We don't usually get to have a booth this big, but we bring everything to the show, and we try to make it, you know, drum up like a party. Like, hey, we're gonna have a big show here, so try and make it out, and we'll bring all this stuff. We do a couple of big sales a year where we try to invite everybody. But yeah, really there's no substitute for just coming to the show and digging through the buckets in person, for sure. So
there we go.
Yeah.
You've got some more fantastic stuff over here. There is people shopping right now as well, so even during the show you can see some of that.
It's been pretty steady.
So we can't get a close look at it at the second, but tell us about kind of this final area that they're digging through right now, and we can talk a little bit more about some of the other products.
You really want to get into it?
Yeah,
okay.
let's, yes.
So this is the Build-A-Bong workshop.
You can see some people hard at work here.
They came all the way from Melbourne for, So, okay, so there is definitely a strong contingent of some Citizen Brick fans that also happen to overlap with enthusiasm for newly decriminalized substances.
Adult products of various kinds.
Right. So we're really just offering what would a Lego bong look like if Lego were to make one? It's kind of an existential, it's a philosophical question, really. I didn't really expect to have an answer, but it kind of spiraled out of control. So now you're talking to the Midwest's largest toy bong manufacturer. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not. Wow. Thank you, though. I feel really enriched learning that fact.
Yeah, so to all you kids out there, when you grow up and go to art school, you too can make toy bongs.
But I wanted to talk about this because it's an example, and we've certainly seen some of the other more adult stuff that you've given us examples of as well. But what is the reaction with the general public like? Because you get tons of public obviously coming through shows. You also have people online that see stuff. So what has that been like over the years?
Okay, so earlier on, when this was a much smaller and not what I did for a living, the part of me got a kick out of angry moms, oh, this is outrageous, how could you do this? I think our stuff is edgy sometimes, but, not outrageous. We don't do human misery very well. We try to keep it pretty light. I think a toy bong is funny. I'm not promoting anything specific. So the overwhelming response has been, most people think it's funny. Mm-hmm. It's been a while since I had someone, really angry at us. It's usually for the prices more than the content. So,
but people are always upset about anything Lego in the price.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at least in this crowd right now, people know it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle choice, right? It's an expensive lifestyle choice. But yeah, I just think it's one more thing that we offer.
Yeah. And it's like we've seen with a lot of your stuff, it's something Lego isn't going to do.
Right.
So it's
like safe. If I was here making Star Wars blasters, then that would probably cause more problems for a lot of Lego folks than this. So I don't know. Yeah.
So we've seen a great array of your products here, and there's so much cool stuff. And you mentioned you're kind of local to the Chicago area. Do you have a physical store if people want to check that out, or how do you work that?
We don't. We have a production space, a warehouse where we make everything. It's really a little more industrial than a store. We do open houses. We're having one after this event. We'll have one on Monday morning where people who are in town, if they want to come see how things are made, we'll show them a little demo tour. But other than that, we're kind of not open to the public. We get too many people asking. It would just be a tour guide all day long. But
so that means it's either at a convention. How many shows do you guys try to be at it per year?
I definitely do all the big ones. We used to do a lot more, but now I really try to hit the ones where I think geographically the most amount of our heavy collectors can make it to. So we do Virginia. We do Brick Fair. This is really my hometown show. Mm-hmm. Portland for Brick Cascades. BrickCon, so I'm going to Brick Rodeo in a couple weeks. So we try to hit one part. We don't do them all for sure. It's just too much to take on the road. But we want to spend. This is like a field trip. My whole staff is here, but we want to spend most of our time just making new stuff. We have a really kind of aggressive production calendar. We don't want to make new stuff all the time.
Sure, that's awesome. Yeah. And so for people who maybe can't make it to a show though in person, what is your online presence like? Yeah. Is everything available online? Is that
mostly? There's definitely some show-only stuff like the Stash, but I mean almost everything we have here we carry online first. It does sell very quickly, I'm happy to say. So we do most of our advertising right now on Instagram, YouTube a little bit, Facebook a little bit less, but we'll post stuff and say like, hey guys, on Friday, 12 o'clock noon, this is going for sale. I can't promise it'll be around forever. And people kind of know the drill. They show up at 11:59 and then they jump on it. So it does turn over pretty quickly, but citizenbrick.com is where you can get everything. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
And what is your general social media presence like? What types of stuff do you put out there? People want to follow you online and kind of keep up with what you're doing?
I think Instagram is probably the best place to see us. We kind of do the most updates there. I really try to, same with emails, like I only send stuff when I've got something to say. I don't want to spam anybody with anything, but when we do make posts on Instagram, it's because there's something big coming. So usually get a week's notice, say, hey, look, here's a preview of what we're going to sell. Here's the new figure. Here's a new part. Heads up, it's coming out on Saturday. So that's the drill.
Yeah, well that sounds fantastic. Cool. So everyone watching, make sure you head on over to the Citizen Brick website. Even better, try to make it to convention, see everything in person here. Yeah. Their products are so unique as we've just shown off.
Photos, autographs, everything.
There you go. There you go. You can't beat the in-person convention experience, but we'll have links to the website and social media in the video as well, so you can check all of that out. Thanks for taking the time to show us around your booth. I know it's one of the biggest kind of setups you guys have done, so I'm excited for more in the future. Awesome.
Thanks, guys.